long as you got on the hat and those earbuds.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctors, where health is wealth. What night is it tonight? It is Monday night, and it is time for Couch Conversations with the Doctors. Well, welcome to 2025, and we're going to start our year out right with giving you some great information. Now, remember, this program is for entertainment purposes only, but we are here to make sure that you stay healthy. We're going to go around and introduce our esteemed panel, as always, starting with my colleague who tends to leave me and have fun in the sun. However, everything outside is icy right now. That's my very own Dr. Douglas Graham. Hey, Doug.
Hey, thank you, Nikki. It's really an honor to be here. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the western suburbs for 30 years. And after retiring, spent 2 years in a congressman's office, and it really opened my eyes to the need for community health. I'm here. It's a pleasure to be here with my colleagues. I'm going to try and answer your questions as best I can.
Outstanding. I want to say hey to Linda Johnson, who is here. She says, good evening to everyone. It was a pleasure meeting you all on yesterday, and I appreciate your kindness. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, enabling us to make informed decisions about our health. All right, Linda Johnson. And I know Dr. Maya says thank you for serving her that sandwich you gave her on yesterday. So she really appreciates it. To the man who has the best art ever, that's our very own Joe Harrington. Joe, the art connoisseur.
Good evening, Nikki, and thank you and Congressman Davis for providing this platform and allowing us to share what information we have about health and healthcare with the public. I spent most of my career in healthcare and public health. I did do some work in education and mental health, but primarily healthcare and public health. I retired in 2017 from the Illinois Department of Public Health, where I was the regional administrator of Cook County and an administrative law judge.
Outstanding. Well, to the urologist of the stars who hates those accolades, but he keeps our men together. And I just have one question, guys. Is there a doctor in the house? That's our very own Dr. Terry Mason. Dr. Mason.
Thank you, Nikki, for that wonderful introduction. And yeah, we got doctors in the house, but that does refer to a program that I've been doing on WVON now for over 30 years, the Doctor in the House. So I'm glad to be here and offer whatever I can. I appreciate this format. I like being here, having a chance to talk and have sometimes a little friendly debate with my colleagues. But overall, we're here to make sure that we do the best to give you the best information that we can. And I look forward to a great and spirited conversation this afternoon.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, to the man who is a esteemed physician by day and an outstanding DJ by night, that's our very own Dr. Pete. Dr. Pete on the ones and twos.
Hey, Nikki, it's a pleasure being here. It's a new year, new opportunities to achieve some new health goals. So I'm happy to be here with my colleagues, my line brother, my five brothers, my brothers in the spirit, and my sister. And so I'm happy to be here, Nikki, and thankful for you and the congressman for creating this forum for us.
Outstanding, and thank you so very much. To the man who says that I threaten him to be here every Monday night, but he seems to always be on time. I think he was a little late today. That's our very own Dr. James Miller. Dr. Miller?
All right. Thank you so much, Nikki, and good evening to everybody. And we're happy to be here on this in this forum and be able to participate, as well as to learn some information that hopefully is good for me, but also to help to provide information to our community. And I am a retired internist. I retired in 2019. Again, I'm still interested in healing my community, though I don't practice clinical medicine anymore, but I'm healing in other ways. So I'm glad to be here tonight, and hopefully we can provide some useful information that's going to be helpful in healing.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, to the weight loss guru physician, who is also the Wolfgang Puck of medicine, our very own Dr. Tony Hampton. Dr. Hampton?
Thank you, Nikki. Always excited to be here. A new year, more people to help. Looking forward to helping as many people as possible. I was blessed to get my new weight scale that also measures body composition. So I'll be able to add that to my obesity clinic starting this week, and just really giving people more information about, it's not just what you see on the scale. It may be what's going on inside your body. So I just think that's going to be great. BC doctor, family doctor, and just always interested in sharing wisdom. So happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Outstanding. Well, to the one who's known on these streets as Dr. 100, our phenomenal physician, our very own Dr. Maya Green. Dr. Green?
Hello, Nikki. I was thinking, I can't remember if it was 2020 that you, Dr. P, and the Congressman, Danny Davis, started this. But when you said it was 2025, I was like, whoa, and there's just so much gratitude that we have to give to the work that you all are doing. And so much that we've learned together. I'm excited for what we're going to continue to do and learn together. And I'm excited for more in person. We've been talking about it, conversations with the doctors. I'm excited to get that moving.
Outstanding, and thank you so very much. Well, that's a great segue into what's going to be happening on February 16th. That's Sunday, February 16th. From 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at Loretta Hospital, we will have an outstanding forum that we are in the mix of kind of finishing up on planning in reference to heart health and heart care. February is Heart Health Awareness, and we will be at Loretta Hospital on heart health. So we'll stay tuned for more details. We'll have robust details for you by next Monday, but we want to make sure that you are aware. So mark your calendars for Sunday, February 16th from the hours of 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. at Loretta Hospital. With that being said, we're going to have a robust conversation this evening, but right before we start our main topic, one thing that I did want us to share with our viewers is how do we start the new year off with our physicians? One thing that Dr. Pete used to always talk about is the fact that preventive medicine is so important. We cannot use our emergency rooms as our primary care physicians. So if one of our great docs can grab the mic really quickly, and if you all can just chime in really quickly and share with our viewers and our listeners exactly how should you start your new year off with seeing your doctor. How do we do that? What do we do? What should we look for our doctor? And what should we ask for? Don't all speak at one time.
So I'll start with this one. And in many health insurance plans, they want you to have an annual physical. And that means you go in there, you have your weight, your blood pressure checked, they check your pulse, they may check the amount of oxygen you have in your blood, with a fingertip monitor. And then they may go start asking you some questions in terms of how are you doing? How are you feeling? How's your weight? How's your work? How's the environment around you? And then there's some routine series of blood tests that they may want to do to make sure that you're not anemic. Check how your kidneys and livers are functioning. You may want to check your cholesterol and your blood fats. So there are lots of things that they do as part of an early detection system to see which direction your health is moving in, and should there be changes in your diet or your medications for the upcoming year.
Okay, well, I see everybody nodding. Who else has something they'd like to share? Go ahead, Tony.
There's a saying that if you don't plan to succeed, then you're planning to fail. Mm-hmm. So I think that, is that each patient also has to evaluate themselves, because, the fact of the matter is that you're the only person that's with you 24/7 and know all the things that are going on. And even you may not know everything, but, so you have to have a plan. I have this particular issue that I know about. And with people have heard things and in terms of recommendation that may be reference to their age, their sex, their in terms of what kind of evaluation they should have. And so I always told my patient, it's always a good thing. And I think most people think that it's a good thing at the beginning of the year to try to get started off on a different level, on a better scale. And so I think that you need to sit down, first of all, with yourself and with your family, and just sort of have some discussions and see what somebody else see, because a lot of things that might be happening to you, that you might not be aware of it because for you it was gradual in development and you might not have paid it in attention, whereas your spouse or your children may be much more aware of it. So you need to sit down, have these conversations, so that when you do plan that appointment with your primary care physician, now you got these things to discuss with him or her, and from there you begin to make a plan, and then you begin to. So also part of that plan is, I need to learn more about me. I need to learn more about what I need to do to improve my health, because ultimately, if your health fails, you're the one that's going to suffer for the most part. So you want to be able to take that initiative, make those plans, and plan to succeed in having a better health.
The only other thing I would add to that is, in God we trust. Everybody else needs data. And I think it starts off with getting your own and getting some, you see your doctor or whoever your healthcare provider is, and get some numbers. There's some basics tests. My colleagues on the program are far more adept at talking about this than I, but there are some targets or some numbers that you need to know about your cholesterol, about whether or not you're anemic, about just all kinds of other things that you may or not be aware of, because just because you feel okay doesn't mean you are okay. And sometimes you need tests to determine that. And I think the other panelists will talk about some of those things, particularly that are pretty well documented, and we know what to do for them if they're out of kilter.
Yeah. And I'll just add, and I do agree with you, because I spent a lot of time in the clinic talking about metabolic health, and 80%, I think, of most chronic conditions are metabolic. So your blood pressure, blood sugar, your triglycerides, and your HDL, that's the stuff in the cholesterol panel, and your belly size. Those 5 things are great. More specifically, I think when I do leadership work, we talk about setting SMART goals, and most of us have heard that SMART acronym. So so if you're doing a weight loss journey, as an example, make sure you're being specific. That's the S in the SMART. Not just, I want to lose weight. How much weight do you want to lose? Be very specific. It needs to be measurable. That's the M. And the M represents, maybe it's the scale. Maybe it's your abdominal circumference. Maybe it's how you feel. Maybe it's your energy level. Give yourself something to measure. It has to be achievable. Don't say you're going to lose 100 pounds when that's not realistic. Maybe you're going to lose 20 pounds, or maybe you say, I'm going to lose 5 pounds this month, and then you go from there. Relevant, that's the other part of the SMART. Make sure it's aligned with your goals and your priorities. So it's not just about, losing weight to lose weight. It's about, maybe I want to have the energy to play with the grandkids, and it needs to be specifically time bound. So set some deadlines, have a sense of urgency. When you have SMART goals, as Dr. Mason has suggested, it's data. It's something you can measure, something you can say, oh, and when you achieve a little bit of that, maybe after the first month you lost the 5 pounds, you're going to feel good. And you're going to feel like, oh, I'm moving towards something, as opposed to just waiting till you get to the finish line. So have SMART goals, and make sure you try to focus on those metabolic health measurements.
Yeah, I just wanted to elaborate on this idea of know your numbers. And I looked at the Heart Association's website real quick. The numbers that they're recommending that you look at, one is your blood cholesterol. That's a waxy substance produced by the liver. The other is your blood pressure, and we talked a lot about that. The other is blood sugar. And lastly, and probably to some degree most importantly, your body weight, measured in terms of your body mass index. So those are the 4 key numbers that you need to know. And if you are seeing a doctor, you can ask your doctor, and they can give you your most recent reading in terms of blood pressure, blood sugar, blood cholesterol, and you should be able to figure out your own body weight.
Outstanding. So we got a quick question from Instagram, and the question is, should a male visit be different from a female? Is there something specific that gentlemen should ask for, or is there something specific that women should ask for when seeing the doctor for their yearly physical?
So I think a lot of that depends on their age.
Well,
Go ahead,
I
Chuck.
just want to say that biologically and physiologically, men and women are not the same. And so there are some differences. I won't get into them, but Doug can probably start, but you have to understand that we're not the same. We're similar, but we're not the same. And our bodies are not the same. And there's certain routine screenings that women need to have that men may not need to have. And there's certain screenings definitely that men need to have.
And
Yeah.
I think just to keep it simple, there are body parts that women have that I don't have. I do have breasts, but I don't have the type of breasts that require a mammogram, although some men can have breasts that require a mammogram, especially if they feel something. So we start with those organs. Women don't have testicles, so doing any type of testicular exam, and believe it or not, most testicular cancers occur in younger men as opposed to older men. Women typically don't have a prostate, so men may need to be having either a PSA or a prostate exam, where women do not. Women certainly have pap smears that are needed if they still have a cervix. And truth be told, you don't typically die from cervical cancer if you've been staying on top of it. I mean, literally, I've rarely seen a patient of mine have cervical cancer and die unless they just have been lost to follow-up care. So if you stay on top of that, you can do amazing work. So I think starting with the screening test, women should get mammograms, women should get pap smears, men should get prostate PSAs or prostate exam, depending on their risk, and make sure that you do those things. And the good news is, I don't see a lot of men dying from prostate cancer if they stay on top of it. I mean, literally, when I see people pass away, it's usually because they wait too long or because they just are lost to follow-up, and then it just it's found by the time it's too late. So that's the biggest thing I can ask anybody who's checking us out to do. Get those screening tests so that you will avoid harm that could have been addressed. Fear, false evidence appearing real, will kill you. That fear that they're going to find something. You want them to find something if it needs to be found, because we have the technology these days to fix most of those problems. So, but yeah, let's get people in to get those checkups, because it's the easiest thing to do. And that spouse or partner of yours who's been bugging you, they know something. They know that if we get ahead of it, we're likely to not succumb to it.
One other thing I would add is, there's a couple other things that we need to be thinking about. And one of them is we need to make certain that in some way, shape, or form, that activity is involved in what we do. Some kind of planned exercise, something that you don't try to do, but you do. And you need to set a goal for a time and an amount of it that you need. If you have a club you go to, there are maybe trainers that may be able to assist you, but be consistent and make sure that it is doing something that helps your cardiovascular system and your being flexible. You've got to be able to do these things. And so really think about it, and make sure that your regular doctor, because you got to remember, and I got to say this, I was with some people and they were talking about doctors and talking about nutrition. I can tell you, and I said to them, I said, I'm with the University of Illinois Medical School right here in Chicago. Spent 4 years there. And in the 4 years I was there, I had 40 minutes of nutrition in 4 years. So I say this because your doctors may not be a good source of nutrition, because a number of them don't know themselves. And I could go on about when that actually started to happen. Actually, when we started taking people's pancreases out for these cancers, and then a lot of the people were not doing well because they couldn't heal, and they didn't heal because they couldn't eat. And we had to then create artificial foods that we would feed them by vein, called hyperalimentation. Don't worry about that. But it was just a way to sort of support and to supply some of the the key chemicals they needed to heal. So that and activity, regular activity. And then the last thing I would say, what are you doing to help improve your own social and your religious or spiritual lives? Because all of these things play a part. And I'm sure, Dr. Miller, you can talk a little bit more about the role that these things play. And I'm not talking about just going to church. I'm talking about things that happen outside organized religion, which is where your real religion comes in.
Yeah, I will. Just to add on to that a bit, and because I think people, a lot of folks tend to think that when they begin to think of their spirituality, they tend to think of what they were doing when they were children, and that is, you go to church and you listen to a sermon, and not really think about really what they really believe, what they don't believe, and how that really how does that apply to their daily life? Because um, many times we see people that people have conflicts because they're not certain about. They've been going through this kind of process of practicing religion, but not really understanding it. And so when certain things happen that does enter into that spiritual realm or into what their religious realm, then there are conflicts. And if you haven't really gotten some kind of understanding and idea about what it is that is right for you, and what your belief is, and what's right and what's wrong, then conflicts occur. And conflict within you is one of the most difficult things for you to deal with, because now you're fighting against two different kind of situations where you're trying to make certain that you do what is right, and then sometimes your right is what somebody else is telling you what's right, and so it's not yet just you're dealing with what you think is right, but you're concerned about what other folks have told you or what they are going to think of you in terms of your behavior and how you react and how you respond to your spiritual self. So I think those are things that people may not really spend a lot of time, but it is important that you, just as you get in touch with your physical self and your mental self, that you get in touch with your spiritual self, because spiritual illness can create just as much conflict and much problems in terms of your ability to feel well, to do good, and to really navigate through life.
Yeah, I want to jump in, and I want to apologize for interrupting Doug, because I know he had something to say. And sometimes the conversation moves on and people don't get an opportunity to get back in. But what I hear people saying is you need to be healthy in terms of your mind, your body, and your spirit. And so those are the three things to focus on. If you really truly want to be healthy, if you're not healthy in all of those areas, you'll cause problems in one or the other, and you really won't be healthy. But I think Doug had something to say, and I think it's important to give him a chance to.
Well, thank you, Joseph. I was just thinking that we were discussing the differences between men and women. I'm also thinking that there's some age things that happen too. I'm really a big advocate of getting your teeth examined at least once a year. Make sure that you don't have gum disease or dental disease cavities, that you don't have something that's chipped and needs to be replaced. The other thing is to have your eyes examined, because we can detect very subtle indications of diabetes, high blood pressure. Maybe there's beginning of some aging in the eye that needs to be addressed and fixed. Because boy, oh boy, we don't want to get older without our sight. So I think if we're talking about just an annual checkup, like getting your car taken in for service, you want to get those teeth checked and you want to get those eyes checked at least once a year. Glaucoma is another one. You can't feel it, but they can see it and detect it before you know what's going on. So I think those are some other things to think about as you begin the new year.
Well, between go ahead.
No, this is real quick. Yeah, I've had dentists that have told me that they could detect early stages of heart disease by just looking at someone's mouth. And I do know that there are blood vessels, small blood vessels in the eyes, and you can look in a person's eyes and you could see there's something going on with their pressure. But those are things that you won't feel. That's the problem. What we tend to do is we tend to wait for something to go wrong and then either show up in the emergency room or go to a doctor and say, this is not working, or show up in an emergency room when you don't have an emergency, but you're feeling pain and you don't know what it is. It could be anything. And it could be something as serious as a heart attack that could have been prevented. And that's why what we're talking about in terms of routine examinations with healthcare professionals, we talked about the eyes, we talked about people seeing dentists and your teeth. So those are things that people often neglect. And actually, some of the earliest stages of disease start in some of those areas.
Outstanding. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Doug.
I was just going to say, it's easier to manage and less expensive to manage if you detect it early. Some of these things are very, very far advanced. They take a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort to deal with it. And you're going to say, gee, if I'd only known about this, I'd done it earlier, and I have a lot more time and other things for myself and my family. So that's something else I'd recommend just once you get it checked, just to find out.
The only thing I would say is that one of the things we got to do, and we've been taught wrongly, we've been taught to think symptoms. Symptoms are the absolute worst way to think about a disease, because many diseases, perhaps most, don't provide. My other colleagues can certainly comment here, but in many instances, there are no symptoms in the earliest, most curable state of most diseases. So that's why we talk about screenings, because that helps us identify some of those things. There's no symptoms of necessarily of early prostate situations, particularly cancer. There's no early symptoms, not directly referable to that. And I would defer to my other colleagues on this whole notion, because we've done a disservice from one point of view in getting people to learn about symptoms, but symptoms show up late, not early.
Outstanding. Well, Lyden Johnson is here, and she says, good evening to everyone. And she also says, it is great to see you, Dr. Mason. Sister Bonnie is here, and she says, good evening. Hey, Yolanda. Yolanda Williams is here, and she says, good evening to all. Laura Leone is here. Hey, Laura. She says, good evening as well. Connie Taylor is here, and she says, good evening and Happy New Year to everyone. Dr. Travis is here hanging out just as well, and she says, hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Melinda Maxwell is here, and she says, hello, everyone, and I am happy. I just received Dr. Hampton's book. I purchased it after seeing him on WGN. All right, celebrity, come on now. So now book sales are flying off the charts. Outstanding. So proud. In the words of Dr. Pete and also Dr. Mason, it's so important that we don't use our emergency rooms as our primary care physicians. And if you're having symptoms, you're almost too late. So let's remember to stay on top of it. I want to say hey to Caprice. Caprice is here, and Caprice says hello to everyone. Patricia Weber is here. Hey, Pat. And she's saying good evening just as well. So this is an excellent segue into our next topic. And our next topic for the evening is food is medicine. So what about God's Pharmacy, Joe? God's Pharmacy. Tell us all about it.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to the owner of God's Pharmacy, or one of the owners of God's Pharmacy, Dr. Terry Mason. And I know that he will have something to say about that.
Well, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Nikki. God's Pharmacy is a name that I came up with when I was thinking about food, thinking about the major things that we suffer from, and what we need to do. And God's Pharmacy is not a new concept. If you talk to anybody that's a pharmacist or anything else, they have a branch of knowledge called pharmacognosy. And pharmacognosy is part of what they have to learn as pharmacists. Because what the truth is that most medications that we have and that we're using are medications that come from some extract or some part of a plant. That's just the truth. For example, those of you who have symptoms of chronic constipation and have taken laxatives, many times that some of those things have come from, especially if it's brown, it comes from the senna plant. and particularly things like Fletcher's Castoria, Serpa Black Drought, a lot of these things. And so what we've done is decided to say, we need to let people know that that's really where all the real medicine comes from for the most part. And also where most of the opportunity for prevention happens. And that is, the tagline is, if we ate more out of God's farms, that is more stuff that comes out of the ground, we would need less out of man's pharmacy.
Mm.
And what we do in man's pharmacy, when we go buy pills and different things, takes prescriptions, and those things have their place and are necessary sometimes. But if we did a better job on the front end by giving ourselves better foods to eat, and in my opinion, more of those that come out of the ground, because when you're not eating stuff that comes out of the ground, you're missing fiber. And fiber is an important part of what you need. Fiber is what's important that helps move your bowels along. So we do need to understand that, and let us not forget water, not stuff that contains water, but water. We need to drink more of that. So God's pharmacy is just looking at those things that occur naturally. And the great thing about it is that you can eat much of it almost just the way it is. So you'll be hearing more of it. That is part of what we do. We will be talking about the farm later on as we get past this wet and winter season, and let you know when we start. We have been doing now a farm. We've been doing it out in the suburbs, and we'll be looking for more land. Hopefully, we'll be able to acquire a couple more 100 acres of land, and because we want to grow our own food. The only way you really know what you're eating is when you grow it yourself, because then you know if there's pesticides in it, if there are other chemicals sprayed in it, you know where it came from, you know the origin of the seeds and things of that nature. So I'll talk a lot more about that when we get toward the summer, and I'll have a farmer come in and talk about why we're doing what we're doing. And we want to have the best possible food for ourselves to eat.
Outstanding. Well, Virginia Knight is here, and she says, Happy New Year to everyone. And Commissioner Donna Miller is here as well, and she says, Happy New Year to everyone. Hashtag let's go. We do have an anonymous question, and that question says, thank you for sharing the information about food being medicine. I know you mentioned defecation. I am wondering, is there a certain amount of times we should do that daily, and what should it look like? Well, Tony.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting question because it's not so much about how often, in my opinion, it's about the quality of the stool. So if the stool is spongy, not too soft and not too hard, you're not straining, you're not pushing out pebbles. So it depends on your dietary pattern. People who eat a more high fiber based diet. When I was a vegetarian, I had a bowel movements literally every day, twice a day sometime. As a more animal based person, I don't have a lot of bowel movements. It's probably 2 or 3 times a week. But when I have a bowel movement, it's normal. So it's all about the consistency. Obviously, a brown stool is probably more typical. It shouldn't, have a strange color to it. And I think as long as that's happening, you're okay. So I do think that we sometimes overstate what's normal. I think people often think a bowel movement a day was the standard. I don't agree with that at all. I think it depends on how you're eating. And if you think about people who fast a lot and don't eat often, they're not going to have as many bowel movements. And that doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. It just means that their body hasn't created a lot of waste. There are certain foods. If I eat a ribeye, there's not a lot of waste created from a ribeye. Your body pretty much with that acid will dissolve it into nutrition and it just disappears. If I eat kale, I'm going to create fiber. So that fiber you don't absorb the fiber, so you have to get rid of the fiber. So again, that's just a simple example, and I think that's how I would judge it. And then if you struggle, you need to think about, am I getting enough fluid? in the low carb community, am I getting enough electrolytes? Because if you are losing electrolytes because you're on a low carb diet, you need to maybe think about your magnesium, potassium, and salt, but particularly in this case, magnesium. So, and those are things you can easily do to kind of mitigate any concern. So what you do is you see how you're doing, try to problem solve why you're struggling, and then you add what's necessary. For some people, it's electrolytes in my category. For other people, it may be they need to eat maybe more vegetables and things like that, and go from there. So it just depends on individual needs.
Yeah, I'm going to phrase the question differently. A week shouldn't go by without somebody having at least one bowel movement. So I don't know what regular is, but I mean, you should maybe if you're not having bowel movements at all, is there danger? I mean, if you go a week and have not had a bowel movement and you're eating every day?
So the average, what's considered normal range is 3 times a day to 3 times a week. An outlier, Ms. Harrington, is actually once every 8 days. Some people are outliers and that occurs. Okay. Those people typically eventually, because the more common range is 3 times a week to 3 times a day, those people generally do end up somewhere in the GI office getting an early colonoscopy just to make sure everything's okay. Once they realize it, right? But there are a couple of things that I think Dr. Tony, I don't know why I forgot your name right there. It's because it's on the screen. But there are a couple of things I think you mentioned that do affect frequency, right? The things you mentioned, fiber, the things you take in, hydration, of course, you mentioned that. Physical activity is a big one, y'all. Yeah. Because physical activity kind of blends everything. It factors into your intake, it factors into your hydration, things like that. It factors into your minerals, physical activity. And physical activity can actually stimulate it unless you are some people experience physical activity in excess. There is a such thing. And then sometimes the body shuts down to preserve some calories in some cases. Medications can have a heavy impact, whether they're legal or not legal substances have a very heavy impact. And then we have people there, that's the body. Medications. And then that's the body. Here's the mind, stress. You know, a lot of studies show like IBS and some diarrhea and some constipation is associated with stress and different changes in mental health. But 3 times a day to 3 times a week is the meat norm that we were taught in medical school. Last time I checked a couple of weeks ago was still the same norm. All right.
So it gets back to if you haven't had a bowel movement in a week, you may want to call your doctor.
Not everybody, no, not everybody. And there are a large number of people that do it once every 8 days, and they you do get it checked out. Mm-hmm.
But again, the key is like if you only have it once a week, which is not I think what Doc just said is true. I mean, that's that range. A carnivore like myself may have a couple of a week, and then the next person's having 1 or 2 a day. So the key is when you have a bowel movement, does it feel normal? Right. But if you get into a rhythm with that, and you're having once a week or twice a week, and it's normal all the time, you're good. But again, this is really important. People understand you create waste you create waste based on what you eat, and you do not create nutrient dense foods like meat does not have fiber. Therefore, it does not create a lot of waste because you literally can use every aspect of that food. Where if you're on a highly plant-based diet, you're going to create a ton of waste because pretty much everything you're eating has a ton of fiber. So it's a very logical conclusion that you're going to have different, and then it's other factors. How much fat is in the meat? If fat tends to promote softer stools versus meat that doesn't have a lot of fat. So, and I tend to eat fatty meat I don't eat lean chicken. I eat fat. I eat the thighs and the legs, more than the next person. So when you eat that way, things tend to flow fairly nicely when you finally have a bowel movement.
And then just for go ahead. Go ahead, Mr.
I was just going to say, then whatever, because what we're saying is normal is unique to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
There's no normal for the population. Normal is unique to the individual. And if normal is unique to the individual, based upon what Dr. Maya said, that if your normal routine in terms of bowel movement becomes inconsistent, at some point you need to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, at some point you need to talk to somebody. So whatever you're doing now, if it's working for you, fine. But if you see it's not working because things are not the way they've been for a while, you need to talk to somebody and see a doctor.
Yeah.
And it's good to know your body. I'll disclose. I'm one of the one less than once a week, but I've been to the coach. Shout out to Dr. Kanika Robinson. I know she probably someone like, wow, are you saying my name? A very good African American GI DAC Rush. And to Rhoda, her name, Keishonda Brown, one of the nurses there. I'm one of those, but I did get into care, find out what's going on. Nothing's going on with me. It's been that way since I was a kid, and everything's fine. So if you're out there like that, I see you. They'll still make you check and everything like that. Just make sure nothing goes off the schedule. All right, that's it. I'm gonna be quiet now.
No, you don't have to be quiet, Maya. I think that what we're discussing is a very important thing. And in terms of bowel movements, that's very important. And just like urine output is important as well. And they are both signaled certain things. And if we're not drinking enough water, that does impact our ability for changing the concentration of our urine as it comes out. If we're not drinking enough water and we're eating food that contains fiber, which is food that comes out of the ground, you're not going to be able to have and may create some difficulty with trying to eliminate a lot of the fiber that's come out. And it's true, food that is fiber rich is very important too, because a lot of that fiber is very important for building some of the scaffolding for some of the, for lack of a better term, some of the bacteria that the body needs to properly dispose of or to take advantage of those things that we eat. So it's a much bigger conversation. I just don't want us to feel that it's pretty simple. It's because it's not. And because we have so many things that we see. If we go in our local drugstores, in some places you'll see entire walls filled with things for bowel movements, and that's very telling. So and then you need to just be making sure that if you're, based on what you're eating, it will make a difference. And based on what you're eating, it may just make a difference in your bowel movements, but even urination and frequency of urination, particularly depending on how much water you're drinking, may change the concentration and or color of your urine. So you just need to look at these things. I unlike Dr. Excuse me, Dr. Tony, we eat different. We've had conversations about this on the show. And I'm one of those that will have far more frequent bowel movements than he, because I eat very differently from him, because I eat basically out of God's pharmacy, and that's the stuff that grows out of the ground. And that's not a problem. It's just that it's different, and we can always deal with these differences, and we need to make sure we understand what meaning they may or may not have for us.
Mm-hmm.
Outstanding. Well, Pat Weber says, good evening. Can someone please discuss this I think she means neurovirus. Somehow I contracted it and had to leave work today. I was told it had to run its course, but what should I be eating? I want to lose weight, but definitely not this way. So the neurovirus. Can someone run through that really quickly?
I'll just chime in real quick.
Okay.
it's been so many people in the clinic that's been sick lately. It's been ridiculous. I actually just started wearing my mask, and my wife insisted. It took about 2 days, and now it feels like I'm not wearing a mask. So I'm going to be wearing a mask throughout the season, because it's not just about COVID. It's about a simple cold, bronchitis, pneumonia, flu. It's all disruptive to a busy person's schedule. So,
Well,
but
you are not alone, because I am back in my mask, but go ahead.
amen, amen. So neurovirus is highly contagious, and a lot of people who get it end up with GI upset. I have a very sensitive stomach, so I hope I don't get that. And it causes inflammation in your stomach and intestine. So are we talking? I'm sorry. Are we talking about the neurovirus, which is more of a GI thing? Did they specify when they said neurovirus? Were they talking about the GI
Well,
version?
she said she's losing weight, but she wasn't losing weight, but she definitely didn't want to do it that way.
Norovirus, yeah. Norovirus, I think she told me.
So there's an outbreak of norovirus in Chicago. So
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
not late. Let me
Just
stop.
wanna make
No,
sure.
there's an increase. Wait a minute. Do not. Yeah, there's an increase in norovirus in Chicago. So you're right, Dr. Hampton. They
I
talking
just want
about
to make
that.
sure. Okay, cool. So when you get a virus that affects your gastrointestinal system, you're gonna have nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, cramps, all the stuff that used to drive me crazy with irritable bowel. But with this, you also have fever, body aches, fatigue, and things like that. So it's not cool. Usually it'll last for 2 to 3 days, depending on the person. Our very fragile folk may suffer longer. It's usually from contaminated water sources and things like that. Surfaces you touch. I'm trying really hard to keep my hands clean. We thankfully have our hand sanitizers by the door, so when we walk in, and it you can get some outbreaks, particularly in facilities like my wife's dad's in a nursing home. I mean, guys, I don't know if you ever took care of somebody in a nursing home. Shout out to all the nursing home people, but you got to take care of adults who have dementia. They don't know what's going on. You're trying to keep them clean. They're wearing diapers, and it's a nightmare. So it takes a lot of hand cleaning and being careful when you're preparing food and things like that, disinfecting countertops, etc. And at the end of the day, it's a virus that is very preventable. I think more preventable than a lot of the airborne viruses, because it's a lot of contact. So if we're very smart with our hands, get used to not touching your face. That's a habit I learned a few years ago when I was taking care of a lot of babies and kids. And I just got used to not touching my face. And if I had to do something, I would do anything other than my hands, because your hands are touching everything. You're shaking hands, you're opening doorknobs, you're touching computers, your colleague may be sick. And so if you keep your hands out of your face, it's hard to catch stuff, especially when it's contracted via, touching something. So those are the things that come to mind for this.
And with that being said, when you go to the stores and you use those carts, could you just please remind yourself to use hand sanitizer before you get back in your car and hold on to your steering wheel? Because when you put your hands back on your steering wheel, then you touch your face and your eyes. And
here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Or those doorknobs. So I'm not telling everybody to wear gloves, but what I will tell everybody is wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
And make sure you wash them hands really good. So I'm going to make sure that by the end of this show, we're going to have Dr. Maya give that hand washing class again. We did that during the time of COVID, and we were saving lives, but I think she's going to have to do it one more time just so you guys can get it, because we got to get it. Roderick Martin is here. Hey, Rod, how are you? He says, hey to Nikki, Dr. Mason, and Cy. ISU, hey, y'all. It's been a long time. So thank you so much, Roderick. Hey, how are you? Patricia Weber also has another quick question. Patricia says, what do you think of hydrocolonics? So I see, go ahead, Dr. Maya.
Oh, no, I'm not on mute. Oh, that's why, I'm not a super duper fan of hydrocolonics. This is about to be one of them things like you and y'all hear my baby Alpha talking. Apparently she's not a fan either. This is one of those things where if you ask all of us, we'll probably have a different opinion, but basically hydrocolonic is that I think you're talking about is when you gently fill the colon with water, trying to loosen the stool. and you kind of flush the colon area out. You can get them in a lot of med spas, things like that. And then after that, you go to the laboratory and there's a stool. They'll give you some vitamins and things to replenish it. The reason I'm not a fan, I've not been a super fan of hydrocolonics, is because of the variability of what the flush is done with, right? So you have boutique, which I'm a trained massage therapist. I believe in mind, body, and massage work, you all. But the variety of things that people can put into the colonics, proprietary products, things like that, that can actually wear away at the lining of your colon, and then they flush it through. And so they're literally running it through, you know, and I've seen some not so good things happen with it. I do have some friends that really specialize in it and things like that. So I know I'm gonna get calls, but I really think you have to know who you're going to and know what they're putting into it before you invite that kind of flush into your body. That's what I've, you know, and I've seen some, yeah. But this is one of those things. If you ask each of us, we got a different opinion.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a similar opinion. I remember the first time I played with a pig in anatomy class. I'm not sure if Brother Pete was with me, but I said, "Those are the chitlins." I didn't know. It's something about seeing it and putting your hands on it. Of course, they sedated the pig so the pig doesn't have awareness. But you know, your GI tract is not holding on to sludge like people advertise. That's just not real. That's not a real thing. When you eat something, you will absorb it or get rid of it. All of this nonsense about I got to clean out my colon is a joke. It's all fake news. I hate to sound like Trump. Therefore, people say it's good for your digestion. It detoxifies you and does all of these different things. What it really does is put you at risk for dehydration because now you're washing out all the fluids and the electrolytes. There's some risk for colon perforation. And at the end of the day, you really don't have to do that. What you want to do, and I think Dr. Mason would agree, eat normal food on a regular basis, and your body was magnificently made, and it will do that for you. There's no need for you to spend all this money, time, resources, and take a risk when you can just eat better. So I know there's a little bit of a rant, but please, guys, do not waste your time and money on things that are not adding the kind of value you think it's going to add. Now, again, everybody has an opinion, but your intestines and your colon are not made to hold on to stuff. It's going to do it naturally.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with my colleagues, and you probably could add me to the list of people because I know people, my patients, some of them just live and die by this. There's something that they feel is therapeutic about it.
You said the key word, feel.
They feel, yeah, absolutely. So I don't go in with the, you're wasting your money kind of deal, but I will say there's been no studies to support there's any sort of therapeutic benefit to this. One, the water doesn't go past the sigmoid colon. So you mean to tell me that I'm going to have a great sigmoid colon, but the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, I'm screwed. Well, wait a minute. If you're going to get the waste out of the sigmoid colon, I want the waste out of the whole colon. So it anatomically doesn't make sense. Functionally, it doesn't make sense. And what I say is, like Dr. Hampton just said, control the controllables, control what you put in your mouth. Because, and here's another thing that they do. They make you fast and drink nothing but clear liquids prior to the hydrocolonic. So the value you feel is the fasting and the clear liquid fluids that you're drinking before. It's not the spraying of the water, it's spraying your, y'all know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And to just underscore what you're saying, Dr. Pete mentioned the sigmoid colon. The function of the sigmoid colon is actually to absorb the nutrients and absorb any water left in your body before the waste passes. So if it's being done there and the nutrients are trying to move across, and here you come flushing it. If you are a person with a vagina, I will say the same thing they tell us about using different substances, proprietary blends, and all this other stuff to clean that canal out. It's the and then they're like, well, why did you clean the healthy stuff out? You know, it's the same thing for the colon. I mean, yeah. So.
Doctors, can I ask this real quick? Y'all don't mind. Hello and happy New Year to everyone. This subject is amazing because in my 20s,
Well, come on and bless the colon. Go ahead.
in my 20s, colonic, I got aware of it, right? And and the case is still going on. Should it be by a health practitioner or a doctor such as yourself? Because I remember going to a famous street on the South Side, Stony Island, in the back of a room to get one. And just because I heard a lot about it, right? And and for all I know, right, something bad could have happened, right? I just was ignorant, just didn't know. And people were saying they felt wonderful, colon cleans. And I don't know if that person was a doctor, had something on the wall, certified or whatever. And so speak to that just in case that kind of activity is happening.
Well, if you're looking for me as a healthcare provider, I'm gonna say you're gonna have to get somebody else to do it, because I'm not gonna be able to do that to people under my personal, like the commitments I have to community. But if we are talking about the same place, two things we already talked about. I already expressed thoughts on that. But then they gave you vitamins and some stuff to replenish what you just washed out afterwards. You didn't leave it handy. You had vitamins and all this other stuff, fruit, juice blend that they made up and put their vitamins in it, because then you have to work to replenish what was already, what was good that you washed out. Did I speak to it, or was there something else, Pastor?
I think you spoke to it. My point is really from a safety standpoint, right?
Yeah.
In my 20s, I just didn't know. I just heard it. It was popular.
Yeah.
And
Now
I don't know.
You're not getting it from doctors to answer your question. There is a very rare conventionally trained doctor who's gonna do that. Maybe some alternative practitioners will do it, but most of the people I've seen do it are just you get some training in it. Colon hydrotherapist, I think they call it. You can get training in it, and then you can take that certification and go to a wellness center or a spa. Or maybe you are connected to an alternative care practitioner who will then allow you to do that on their behalf. That's typically what happens, but you can be certified in it. So it's not that the people who are doing this work are not competent. You may want to ask for a certification. The key is this technology, based on Dr. Pete's comments, evidence-based? And what I'm saying is it's a little overrated. Where acupuncture is evidence-based. Like, you can actually see studies that say that crazy procedure where you put needles in your body, there's science to support that. There's science to support all kinds of things, spending time in a sauna. I just think that this particular science is weak at best. And now, if I do that before I start my health journey and I can do it safely, most people will feel it was value added. But again, I think that was more psychological. And there's nothing wrong with that. But as a doctor, when I do a YouTube video or whatever, I'm trying to be as evidence-based as possible, because my colleagues in Advocate Health will destroy me if I start recommending stuff that doesn't have science to support. I'm already on the edge by being a carnivore. So if I start talking crazy about stuff that doesn't have science, then I'm not going to be able to stand on my two legs. And I don't want to go to school all these years and all this training to then start to promote things that are wishy-washy. So until I see some strong evidence for it, I'm not convinced at this point.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I'm sorry. I would just add to that I agree. First of all, there's a reason why our GI system is set up the way it's set up. There's a reason why your food goes into your mouth and should be chewed adequately by your teeth, and then go down into this area where you call a stomach, where you've got all these acids that help to do different things, and then other parts that help to neutralize that, but move it down an entire very well designed system to help extract the additional water, fluids that are necessary actually absorb the nutrients that are necessary. And I just don't see, when you're putting the water in the opposite way it should be, the stool goes, that's to me not acting in the best interest of the way things are designed. And if you really wanted to be dealing with trying to do something and I don't believe in this colon cleansing, I'm gonna tell you that right now. But I think you do need to think about if you're not having bowel movements frequent enough, you need to check what you're putting in your stomach, because most of that you can change just by the kinds of things that you put in your stomach. And basically much of that can be changed by just adding things that come out of the ground. You just pick whatever you like, and it what comes out of the ground, and you'll see that'll work. Plus your system is designed to deal with things that we put in our mouths that are appropriate food sources, and we'll deal with them and process it in the way that is most helpful for all of us.
Yeah, I just want to add a few things, and I'm going to try to be quick because I know we're going over time. One, Terry says the way we were designed, this is the way we evolved. I mean, we've been on this planet for a long period of time. so this is how we've evolved, and this is the way things should be. And Dr. Pete said something I'm not going to challenge, but I want to make it clear. A good friend and colleague of ours, Dr. Paul Crawford, used to say that our people suffer from the I feel good syndrome. People say they feel good. You could be dying and feel good on any given day. Just because you feel good doesn't mean there's not something going on in your body that hasn't created a symptom or something that you know. That's why we're saying, and where we started, is you need to be in a regular system of care. How you feel has nothing to do with how healthy you are. If you go to a doctor can do an assessment and let you know what problems you may or may not have. And if you have a problem, a doctor can tell you, or a medical professional can tell you, these are the things you need to do to reduce the likelihood that you'll have a fatal event or this disease will continue to get worse.
Outstanding. Well, Roderick Martin says we can also consider the levels of neurovirus COVID found in the wastewater for efficacious data. Also, Dorothy Murphy says, thanks for the information, Dr. Hampton. And Pat Weber says, thank you just as well. And I want to say, thank you, Jesus, for the homemade colonic, which is a rutabaga or turnip bottom. That's what I'm going to tell you. You want a colonic, do it nature's way. Go to the grocery store and get you some rutabagas or some turnip bottoms, and you're going to be all right.
It's all right.
Kitty Brown is here. She says the conversation was very educational tonight. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Brown. With that being said, we're going to go around and do our Until Next Mondays as always, and I'm going to start with our very own Dr. 100. That's Dr. Maya Green. Dr. Green, what's your Until Next Monday?
Well, I will say until next Monday, I'll share my family's New Year's. I know going back to the beginning, my brother hosts a vision and meditation session every New Year's, and we have family and friends there. But not only that, it's not like make a vision board and then go. Making a vision board, write the vision, make it plain. You see what I'm saying? I've been reading it past the side. But it's not only that, but then there's action behind it. And so each one in different parts of our life, we have takeaways. We have the vision board, but we have cards that we take with us. And we usually do 7 different, like mind, body, spirit, finance, different ones, health, things like that. And we have one for each one, and we get up every morning and we repeat. We go through our flashcards every morning until we can cross that one off, and then we go from there. At the end of the year, there is science behind that. There is science behind getting up every morning and right before you go to bed, because sometimes when we don't have the answers to it, sometimes a guy has to wait till we're quiet, like me. And I'm asleep. And then it's like, okay, here's the answer, And so there's also science to that. So I'll share that with you. That's what we do on New Year.
Outstanding.
And we work on a 100-year family plan.
Oh, okay. Outstanding. Well, Doug, Dr. Green says vision and meditation. What's your until next Monday?
You know, my wife loves to travel, and every time she gets on a plane, she's always checking the weather of where she's going to arrive, so she has the right clothes when she gets off the plane. So I'm thinking that kind of applies to the new year. You want to see your primary care doctor, you want to see your dentist, you want to see your eye doctor to get checked out, so you can plan for your journey this year. So it does make sense to get these annual checkups. It really does to help you navigate the new year.
All right. Well, Joe, Dr. Maya said vision and meditation. Dr. Doug said plan your journey for the new year to get those right exams. What's your until next Monday?
My till next Monday, well, I'm going to start with two things and then go to five. The first two are based on the conversation: know your numbers and know your body.
Okay.
That's what everybody should do. And Dr. Mason, when he was Commissioner of Health, and I've said this before, offered up a prescription for health consisted of five things: drink more water, eat more fruits and vegetables, exercise your mind, body, and spirit, be sexually responsible, avoid all addictive substances and behaviors. Do that, you'll live a long, healthy life.
All right, Joe. All right. Well, Dr. Mason, we went from vision and meditation to plan the journey for your new year with the proper exams. Then know your numbers, know your body, water, fruits, veggies, sexual responsibilities, doing everything right so you can live a great life. What you got for me, Dr. Mason?
You already got it. You already got it. I think that we've had a wonderful conversation tonight, and that card that Mr. Harrington just wrote, we made hundreds of those cards and passed them out. And it's called our 5 to Thrive. So it was just a way to just put it in a simple way. And the other thing is one thing we didn't talk about, and we will need to talk about, and that is your spiritual and mental health, because we neglect those often. But we do need to talk about those, and there are things that we can do to improve both. And eating the right things helps to begin with. So thank you very much, Nikki, for the opportunity.
Outstanding, outstanding. Well, Tony, Dr. Hampton, vision and meditation, planning for the right journey with this year with your exams, knowing your numbers, and all of those great things on the 5 to Thrive, and spiritual and mental health. What you got for me?
Well, in order to make all of that happen, you have to take a moment, pause, and decide what your priorities are for this year.
Okay.
You don't have to achieve everything this year. Just decide what that one thing is. And then the big mistake we make in life is that we set goals and then our behaviors don't align with those goals. You set a goal and then tomorrow gets here and you haven't done anything towards that goal. When I wrote my first book, Fix Your Diet, Fix Your Diabetes, I only spent 30 minutes a day working on that book. That's it. I spent time in the car thinking about what I wanted to write. And then I spent 30 minutes at clinic early in the morning writing. That was it. And about 4 or 5 months later, I was done. I didn't edit. I just wrote whatever was on my brain, and that's how it happened. So set some goals, align your behaviors with that goal, do small, consistent steps to help you achieve that goal. Stay focused, be intentional, and you'll be surprised. I'm sure that Jimmy Butler, who's raising you know what in the NBA right now,
Yep.
he spends a lot of time doing the skills. I see him dribbling and doing all this. It takes a lot of work to be great. But if you don't do the little things, you can't achieve the big things. So that's my until next Monday.
All right. Well, Dr. Miller, vision and meditation, planning your journey in the new year with the proper exams, knowing your numbers and the 5 to Thrive, spiritual and mental health, and goals and behavior, your 2025 priorities. What you get, Dr. Miller? You're muted. You're muted, Dr. Miller. There you
This year
go.
has started out with a lot of news report about violence and death and destruction and conflict. And I think that, as we live in a society, we're obviously living together. There's no space for this. The earth is is to be shared by us all. And one of the things that that I've made up my mind to do in 2025 is to spend more time getting to know people, helping people to get to know me, and to I think one of the things that I recognize, especially in our youth, is that we seem to have um forgotten how to resolve conflicts without some type of confrontation and violence. And that probably started mostly with our behavior and with our conversations. So by having conversation with people, we get to know each other. And I just think as a society, I think we got to spend more time. And I don't mean just saying hello, but we got to get to know folks and talk to them and mean what we say and say what we mean. Most of the time when people are greeting each other, they say, "How are you?" They don't really want to know how you are. That's just a greeting. But I think you ought to make if you're gonna if you ask me a question that you mean. If you just want to say hi, just say hi. But I think that you ought to say how are you. We ought to be concerned about one another. And so I just think that we are in a time, if we don't get to be a little bit more concerned about each other, we're gonna kill each other off. We're gonna keep confusion, conflict, and turmoil just revved up. And we really need to slow it down.
All right, Dr. Miller. All right. Well, past the sign, let me tell you what you got. You got vision and meditation. You got plan your journey, get the right exams. You got know your numbers and know your body and the 5 to thrive. You also got spiritual and mental health. Then you got goals and behavior, know your 2025 priorities. Now, they also broke it down and said, be straightforward, get to know people, manage conflict resolution. Bring us home.
Well, thank you, Nikki. And again, to everyone, it's really a pleasure weekly to come on and be with you all. I learned so much. First of all, let me say this. I am so grateful unto God. I spent a good part of December ill and even Christmas in bed, overcome pneumonia. And so I'm so grateful to be here, to be alive and well. I want to say this a couple of things before next Monday. Dr. Harrington, I want to extend what you said. You said know your numbers, and I had to do this last week. Not only know your numbers, but know what your numbers mean. I knew my numbers, but I had to really go back and research the meaning of my numbers. And that changed my whole perspective concerning my doctor visits that are forthcoming. And so not only know your numbers, but know exactly what they're meaning and what your test indicates. But also we started out by talking about food as medicine. And before next Monday, I want everybody to consider the Daniel's fast. The Daniel fast is something we talk about food as medicine. It can have spiritual as well as natural benefits for those who get engaged. Our church, we do a 21-day fast every year. And it's really something, as Dr. Mason said, our bodies, it's a wonderful system designed by God, right? That can really take care of itself in a lot of ways if we eat the right foods. Our people perish for a lack of knowledge. And I think the things that we're talking about can help us go on to live healthful, beautiful lives. And so I just want to share with everybody, one, cherish every day, live your best life, be mindful of what you put in your body, and be mindful of what comes out your heart.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Well, oh, sure, Joe.
Yeah, I sent you a fact sheet on know your numbers. I couldn't put it in the chat, but I sent it to you. So if people want it, you have a fact sheet from the American Heart Association on know your numbers.
Okay, I will actually get that posted up in there. So thank you so very much. Just want to remind everyone once again, February is Healthy Heart Month. So just want to remind you to join us on February 16th at Loretta Hospital. That's Sunday, February 16th from 1 to 5 at Loretta Hospital. More details to come. We'll have details for you on next Monday so you can have all that great information. And it's a family fun event. So we want husbands to bring their wives. We want wives to bring their husbands, because guess what? You all have a heart and we want your heart to stay healthy. So with that being said, meet us next Monday right here. Same bad time, same bad station. See you then. Good night.
Peace and blessings to everyone.